Number 100 is Super Mario RPG. So I did say that I wasn't much for RPGs. This is a game that's basically impossible for me to rate properly, and yet I think 100 is exactly the right number, even though this is all, done mathematically. Super Mario RPG, like a lot of the games in your honorable mentions, is not a game I've actually ever finished. Now, I favor shorter games, Twitch control in general, I like platformers. This one really is mostly anything but that, although that button press mechanic helps make up for some of the issues there with the turn-based RPGs. I've never finished, but this is nostalgic for me. I rented it as a kid, I had a friend who had it, and I've always had a great time playing this. In fact, I love playing this game. It's something I've tried to do and done a few times over years. I think the problem is simply that I've never stuck with a whole playthrough. That's probably just emblematic of my issues with RPGs in general. Still, graphically it's beautiful. It's a fun game. I remember vividly playing this as a kid. I really just have to finish this one day. And I don't have a physical SNES card of it. I think a lot of people are in that same boat as me, but fortunately there's multiple latter-day ways to play this cartridge. I have it on the Wii Virtual Console, and then of course the SNES Classic. So one day I'll finish this. Number 99, Tekken 3. So I was a huge fan of the Tekken series as a kid. Tekken was so good it led to me actually playing more than sports games again. So when I went from the Super Nintendo to the PlayStation, I was just playing sports games at that point. And probably would have continued down that path, but I got Tekken. And Tekken, really to some extent, is probably why I had a love for video games, continuing as I hit my 12th birthday, went to the N64, and pretty much never looked back. Probably, the large part of the Tekken series. I loved this series so much, I used to map out and write who I thought would win in the sequels and what characters there should be. I liked Armor King best in those days. I had him winning Tekken 4, but everyone had their Yoshimitsu phases too, right? So ultimately, Tekken 3 is a fighting game similar to Tekken 2. It adds some feelers into the idea of 3D space in a fighting game, which at that point, fighting games were mostly 2D, but a lot of different series were kind of experimenting with the idea of 3D in that space. You make combos, you block, jump, perform throws, most fighting games there. It has more characters, including wacky ones like Gon, the short dinosaur, more modes, including a beat-em-up mode, and this crazy fun version of volleyball. It's awesome. The Tekken 3 is a great game, has a lot of features, but it lacks a few of the characters from Tekken 2. So it's more sequel and less upgrade. Tekken 2 was basically just an upgraded Tekken 1. As a kid, though, I wanted to upgrade above anything else, especially for Tekken. So like losing Kazuya and Lee was my favorite character, among others, was a pretty annoying change for me. It's still fun today, but it's not an ultimate Tekken game like maybe it should have been. Number 98, Super Mario Galaxy. So let's get this out of the way before the Flame War. The problem with Super Mario Galaxy is this. It's on the Wii, and it controls as such. So I do know a Switch version came out, but I've got limited time to play games, so I didn't really want to buy one I still had access to on the Wii. So there. That's why it's at number 98 and not higher. And by the way, I spent the night waiting outside of a Target to buy the Wii when it came out. I'm not anti-Wii. I just think that maybe it didn't age as well as the Super Nintendo and the N64, and I think maybe the movement thing was a cool gimmick, but maybe it wasn't really the future of games. And I would say that what's happened since then has kind of borne that out to be true. So that's the bad thing with Super Mario Galaxy, is it's on the wrong console. The good things about Super Mario Galaxy are a lot easier to talk about. This is a 3D Mario game, and while Super Mario Sunshine was a bit of a misstep for me, Mario Galaxy feels a lot more like a successor to Super Mario 64, which is all I think anyone really wanted in the first place. It adds in some fun gravity mechanics, but while Mario 64 was all about exploring the level in 3D, looking for various stars and just kind of taking in the area you were in, Mario Galaxy feels a little more like a traditional Mario game in terms of level completion. You're kind of going from beginning to end pretty often. So I was really excited for this game. This is one of the last games I remember not being able to wait for, and I got it and I completed it. So after I completed it though, I never really did go back like I did for Mario 64, and I still every once in a while load up Mario 64 and explore Jolly Roger Bay again, or the 2D Mario games, or something you always come back to. Something's missing here with Super Mario Galaxy, which is a funny thing to say for a game you're holding in high regard. But it's so good, and something's missing. I never did figure out what it was, unless, again, it's just that it's using the Wii controller. Number 97, Metroid Fusion. So Metroid, and specifically 2D Metroid, has one of the highest ceilings of any type of game. The biggest problem with it, I've found, is that it isn't always a very good portable game, and a lot of the games came out for portable systems. So most Metroid games task you with exploring a labyrinth, making note of where you can't progress, and then collecting the item you need to progress past that point. Metroid Fusion works a little differently. It's much more mission-based, and there's frequent save areas and not nearly as much pathfinding in this one. The result of this is that you actually do get a worse Metroid game, but you get a better portable game. This is not to say that Metroid Fusion is a bad game when it isn't portable. Actually, my first playthrough was almost entirely played on the Game Boy Player, using the GBA as a controller. So it felt terrific. It was just like playing a Super Metroid sequel. This one's a little bit different too. It mixes in some horror elements, kind of survivor horror, and while it doesn't quite reach the heights of Nemesis or Mr. X from Resident Evil coming after you, it's a successful experiment. Nintendo knew this too. That's why they released another Metroid GBA game. The only part that's weird is that the next original Metroid 2D game, not a remake, after this came out in 2021. You got a couple remakes in there, of course Metroid Zero Mission, and then the Metroid 2 remake, but that's a pretty long layoff for something that worked so well. Number 96, Pokemon Y. The first 3DS entry on our list, Pokemon Y is one of the weaker entries and essentially the only RPG series I regularly play. Being a quote-unquote weaker entry and coming in at 96 tells you just how good it is though. This game was easy, even for the Pokemon franchise. I think I accidentally ended up with like a fossil Pokemon at level 100 or close to it. The art style is good, the gameplay's fun. The new gimmick here is the Mega Evolutions, which is okay. It's not necessarily my thing, but it is entirely optional. The setting takes place in a France-like region. You get your new Pokemon based on that, and you get a chance to pick one of the starters from Pokemon Red and Blue at a fairly early point in your journey, which is awesome. Now, the biggest issue is that with Pokemon Sun and Moon coming out in the same console, there's like effectively no reason to ever go back and replay Pokemon Y, even if you want to transfer your Pokemon from all the way back in Ruby and Sapphire. You just skip the Moon. On the plus side, I wasn't a fan of the 5th generation of Pokemon games, that's Black and White and those games, so this is actually a return to form for the series for me. Number 95, Mario Party 5. This is actually the only Mario Party game I ever owned, so you can pretty much interchange this with most other Mario Party games because it's the only one I can actually rate. So call this the Mario Party spot for the top 100 and put your favorite in here. Mario Party is well known and long running. It's a series of virtual board games with fun mini games, and this one actually includes a weird hockey game as an extra that I used to love playing. It's like not the best hockey game on Gamecube, but it's really close. There's a star dressed as a sailor too, which for some reason was always funny to me as well. When you've got a few friends around and a few controllers, a Mario Party game, any Mario Party game, is always a fun idea, and this is the only one I ever spent a ton of time with myself, but I've played Mario Party games, and I've always enjoyed them about as much as this one. The truth is, I just don't really know which ones I've played and which ones I haven't. But this was actually a birthday present, so from a nostalgia point of view, definitely something I'll remember, and I think this one might not even be considered one of the top Mario Party games. I think I've heard that like 5 is kind of one of the worst ones. I really couldn't say or tell you what the differentiation even is. The mini games, have a different coat of paint, but Mario Party is Mario Party, and for me, this one comes in at number 95. Number 94, Wario Land Shake It. Rock and roll! So this one actually made it in the list during the pandemic. I couldn't see my then girlfriend, now wife, and I actually work in healthcare, so to unwind, I started working through my backlog. Wario Land Shake It was the last new game I remember getting for Christmas. It was shortly after this I kind of fell out of gaming, or at least new games, for a number of years, so this game really represents the end of an era for me. You could really say, like, there are games before Wario Land Shake It and after Wario Land Shake It for me, and there's a lot less after. Going back and finally getting a chance to play through it, it's a beautiful 2D platformer that emphasizes exploring and has amazing tunes and animation. I mean, it's unreal. It looks like you're playing a cartoon more than it doesn't, something I really couldn't have imagined growing up. I wish there were more 2D games like this today, but instead I think it might even be the last true Wario Land game. The Wii controls aren't overwhelming, which is, when I complain about the Wii controls, it's because sometimes there's too much of an emphasis on motion control. Definitely sometimes happens with Wii games, but not overwhelming here. Just, it's often a case of just because you can do something, should you? But anyway, while there's motion control, aiming, and shaking, obviously there's shaking, for the most part, this plays like an NES game, and that's exactly what I was looking for here. This is a gem. Number 93, Super Mario Land. So, this is actually a latter day entry for me. Now, I had Super Mario Land 2 as a kid, and my cousin had Super Mario Land. So I knew about it, played it a couple of times, but I didn't really have much of a chance to experience it back then. Now, I got it later. This one actually I finally owned after the 3DS version came out, and I got it so I'd always have it on the go and had a chance to beat it there. So it's a fun, portable Mario romp. It works well with the small screen. It has some of the best music in the entire series, which seems incredible, but it's actually true. There's a lot of variety too. There's a submarine level and an airplane level. These are strange for Mario games, but this whole game's a little bit strange. You don't throw fireballs, you throw super balls. Back then, the Mario series wasn't so firmly entrenched. You've heard the story, I'm sure, about Super Mario 2 and how it's really a different game in Japan. But there are different things in Mario games. Everything wasn't quite as, I guess, established as it is today. There's just a few of those out there back then, and so what if this one's a little weirder? It's on the Game Boy. So to this day, this one's kind of the black sheep, but it's still a fantastic game. Number 92 is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. So this was one of the most anticipated games I can ever remember. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was a phenomenon in the schoolyard, something we were all talking about, and with a quick sequel planned, everyone I knew was excited to finally play it. It actually smooths out a few of the weird things in the first one, like that downhill jam level, and helps bring the series to what I guess I consider its norm, which is kind of a funny concept when there's like 1 through 4, and then it kind of went off into a different direction. This doesn't have the same magnetic quality that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater had, and I don't remember anticipating Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 the way we anticipated this one, so I guess it kind of lost a lot of momentum from the first. It's still a worthy successor. You just won't get glued to it like you would by its older brother, and none of the stages stand out the same way, and I think that might be even the biggest reason why it's sort of a downgrade from it. There's Warehouse and Roswell that you can remember right away in Tony Hawk 1, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 doesn't have those same stages. This just might be a case where there's so much hype for something that there's no way it could possibly equal it, even with a more than incremental improvement. And it really is more than incremental improvement where you go from like a Madden 99 to Madden 2000, it's a roster upgrade. This is something where there's a lot of new customization options, like a skater editor and a park editor. So certainly more than just incremental. I just think it couldn't possibly reach the expectations we set for it. Number 91, Metroid Zero Mission. So, as a quick disclaimer, or maybe an explanation, something that will really help as we get further into this list. I count some remakes as their own game for the purposes of ranking, and for some remakes, I count them as the same game for the purpose of ranking. This is entirely subjective, but basically my criteria is this. I will count a remake as a different game if it provides a different type of gameplay experience, or if it should be enjoyed in a different way. I guess the best examples I can give here are for something that's going to provide the same experience. Let's say Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, and Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Effectively, these are the same game. There's a couple of differences here and there, but it's not really meant to be enjoyed in a different way. Whereas with this one, Metroid Zero Mission, this feels like a different type of game from the original Metroid, so it's actually here on its own, and Metroid has its own individual score. Don't consider this a review of Metroid and Metroid Zero Mission. Okay, all that said, in Metroid Zero Mission, the Fusion engine was reused, and rather than this being an original adventure, the original Metroid was revamped to fit the series as of Fusion and Metroid Prime. This means, first of all, that a map is present, which is a big change from Metroid, and truthfully, pretty important for a portable game. Equally so are the save points. Now, new bosses and areas are also added here, and when you think you've beaten the game, you actually have to embark on a stealth mission in the Zero Suit. This is actually the main reason why I consider this to be its own game as opposed to a remake, because this part is so out of left field and adds on an entirely different experience. It's also actually my least favorite part of the game. Prior to that, I felt like this game was much stronger, and that really did dip down the enjoyment for me. Still, this feels like a portable, convenient experience as opposed to the unknown world of Metroid on NES. So do you like this more than Metroid on the NES, or less? I think most people would say Zero Mission's a better game, but that's up to you. But for me, this game comes in at number 91. Number 90, Mega Man X2. So this was another pandemic game for me, and I loved it. I had just completed Mega Man X, and I had the boss order pretty well internalized at this point. That's a game I've had since I was a kid, so this was basically getting a new series of bosses to run through, and it was awesome. For the most part, I think that's what this game should be taken as. It does add to the formula a little bit more exploration maybe, but if you like Mega Man X, you'll like X2, and probably the rest of the Mega Man games as well. I don't think it's quite as memorable as Mega Man X, and it's a shame that, everything about X2 has to be compared to Mega Man X, but that's kind of how it is. This is the sequel, and it's a very similar game. It does keep the difficulty, and it doesn't go overboard in exploration the way I kind of feel Mega Man X3 does. So it's the standard formula. You run, you shoot your way through 8 evil robot levels, you get rewarded with upgrades for exploration, and you have some rockin' tunes along the way. Now, I mentioned that lists like these are fluid, and it's worth noting that I haven't really come back to this game since the first time I played it. That might be a case of too many games, not enough time, but it also might mean that this one just doesn't have the kind of lasting power that Mega Man X has. And that suggests it might not be a top 100 game sometime in the near future if that replay spot ever gets reevaluated. Still, this is a worthy successor of Mega Man X, and I definitely recommend it over Mega Man X3, although that's not bad either.